We're jumping straight into applied optoelectronics today. Everyone is watching the price action. But the real story is their massive shift into AI-centric data center networking and that critical 800G inflection point.
Exactly. You're tuned into the Easy Money Show, where we make sense of the market's biggest moves. I'm glad you're with us.
Hit that subscribe button and give us a like so we can keep simplifying the noise for you. So imagine holding a piece of glass, right? Like no bigger than a grain of rice.
Okay, grain of rice. I'm with you.
Yeah, and now imagine the entire AI revolution, like trillions of dollars, just grinding to a complete halt if you cannot manufacture that tiny piece of glass flawlessly. That is essentially the physical reality applied optoelectronics is navigating right now.
It really is. And they just posted these absolutely record-breaking revenue numbers for the first quarter of 2026, but then the stock just took a harsh dive right after earnings.
Which is wild to look at. So our goal today is to kind of look past those top-line headlines. We want to unpack the physics and the engineering tailwinds driving their sales.
Right, and weigh all of that against the very real structural execution risks that are clearly causing these market jitters. We really need to figure out what the true narrative is behind the numbers.
Yeah, because the numbers on the revenue side are undeniably staggering. I mean, we were looking at their fourth consecutive quarter of record revenue.
Fourth in a row. That is not easy to pull off.
It's really not. For Q1 2026, they hit $151.1 million, which is a 51.3% jump year over year. But the metric that really demands attention here is the data center segment.
Oh, absolutely. That segment just surged 154% to 81.4 million. It's crazy.
It's massive. Data center networking makes up over half of all their sales now. They are fundamentally transforming their core business away from legacy telecom basically right before our eyes.
Yeah. And to understand that surge, you have to look at the mechanics of what they're actually building. We're in the middle of this monumental infrastructure upgrade cycle. The transition to 400G and 800G networking speeds is just accelerating rapidly.
Right, and their 400G sales are already up tenfold. Plus, they just crossed this critical operational milestone, completing their first volume shipment of 800G transceivers to a major hyperscaler.
Which is huge. And management clearly sees this demand holding up, because they raised their full year 2026 revenue guidance to over $1.1 billion. They have visibility into this completely unprecedented pipeline of orders.
So let's ground this in the hardware for a second. If you look at an AI server cluster, you essentially have, I don't know, tens of thousands of GPUs trying to function as one giant unified brain.
Right, they have to talk to each other constantly.
Exactly. And they communicate using electrical signals. But copper wire causes signal degradation over any real distance. Plus, it generates way too much heat at those ultra-high speeds required for AI.
Yeah, copper just cannot handle the physics of AI workloads.
No, it can't. So you need a transceiver at the end of the server rack. It takes that electrical signal, uses a microscopic laser to translate it into a pulse of light, and shoots it down a fiber optic cable.
And then the receiving transceiver at the other end catches that light and turns it back into electrons.
Yeah.
When you're pushing data at 800 gigabits per second, or even the upcoming 1.6 terabit speeds, the frequency of those light pulses is just unfathomably fast.
It's hard to even wrap your head around it.
It really is. If those transceivers are slow or inefficient, your multi-million-dollar AI chips just sit there idling, waiting for data.
Which brings up the obvious question. I mean, they aren't the only company manufacturing optical gear, right? Why are the largest tech companies in the world funneling these orders to applied optoelectronics specifically?
Well, it really comes down to their specific competitive mode. They have this in-house indium phosphide laser capability. Historically, a lot of transceivers relied on silicon photonics, mostly because silicon is cheap, abundant, and the manufacturing is well understood.
Right. Silicon is everywhere in tech.
Exactly. But silicon is an indirect bandgap material. From a physics perspective, it just struggles to emit light efficiently on its own at the intense frequencies you need for 800G.
So it basically hits a physical wall.
Yeah, it hits a wall. Indium phosphide, on the other hand, is a direct bandgap semiconductor. It generates photons highly efficiently at the exact infrared wavelengths needed for these high-speed fiber optic networks.
But there's a trade-off, right? I remember reading it's notoriously brittle.
Extremely brittle.
Yeah.
It is incredibly difficult to manufacture. Right now, there is actually an industry-wide shortage of indium phosphide laser capacity.
Wow. Okay, so competitors who rely on third-party foundries for these components are just struggling to secure the supply they need.
Yep. But because Applied Optoelectronics owns their own indium phosphide fabrication facility, They control the underlying substrate of the entire product. Aligning one of these lasers inside a transceiver is literally like trying to thread a microscopic needle while standing on a vibrating table.
That sounds completely impossible.
It's incredibly hard. But by controlling the fabrication of the needle itself, they can iterate their designs faster and guarantee volume to their biggest clients. That structural advantage secures their supply chain.
Which is the most important factor for a hyperscaler who cannot afford a 6-month delay on a multi-billion-dollar data center build-out. I get that. But I have to push back a little here.
Sure, go for it.
Is this vertical integration actually a permanent moat, or are they just catching a temporary wave of AI panic buying? Like, if every tech giant is aggressively hoarding optical components right now, there's a huge risk of an inventory glut when that music starts.
That is a highly valid concern. The fear of an inventory digestion phase is actively debated among analysts right now. Looking at the flip side,
We really need to examine the ugly side of those Q1 earnings, because despite that impressive revenue pop, profitability took a significant hit. Their GAAP net loss actually widened to $14.3 million.
yeah, that margin compression is definitely the flashpoint for the stock's volatility.
And it gets worse for the Wall Street models. Their gross margins dropped to 29.2% from 31.4% in the previous quarter. If you're a listener looking at that 29% margin, you are likely thinking, why am I holding stock in a company selling more high-tech gear than ever but losing profitability?
It seems entirely counterintuitive, I know, but it comes down to the physical reality of getting a new manufacturing line up to speed.
Okay, walk me through that.
So we're seeing a combination of heavy capacity investments and severe product mix headwinds. Remember how we said indium phosphide is incredibly brittle?
Right, the vibrating table analogy.
Exactly. When you ramp up a brand new cutting-edge 800G manufacturing line, the tolerances for calibrating those lasers are totally unforgiving. In the early production batches, a huge percentage of those components simply fail quality control.
Oh, wow. So they just end up in the scrap bin.
They do. And every scrapped laser represents wasted raw materials, wasted cleanroom time, and wasted specialized labor. To counter that, you have to run the manufacturing line slower to ensure quality assurance, which just decreases your overall output efficiency.
And you add in the depreciation of the massive capital expenditures for the new tooling. And yeah, your gross margins inevitably take a temporary beating. But management is still publicly targeting a 40% long-term gross margin, right?
They are. They project that as the processes mature and the yield rates improve, meaning fewer lasers in the scrap bin, we will see a dramatic profitability inflection. But modeling 40% on a spreadsheet and actually achieving it on a clean room floor are two very different things.
Totally, which highlights the steep operational hurdles they are facing. They are attempting to scale production from roughly 100,000 units a month currently to over 650,000 units a month by the end of the year.
That is a more than six-fold increase in a compressed time frame. It leaves virtually zero margin for error in their supply chain management or their labor force training.
And while they navigate that manufacturing tightrope, we have to look at customer concentration risk. Their top 10 customers account for 98% of revenue, which is terrifying when you pull back the layers.
It is a glaring risk factor all by itself.
The fact that 44% of their total revenue comes from a single legacy cable TV client is a major red flag. If that single cable client decides to delay an upgrade cycle or pivot to a different standard, it carves a massive hole out of their cash flow.
You are essentially tethered to the capital expenditure whims of a very small handful of massive corporations. And that reality check is exactly what dictated the market mechanics post-earnings.
Right, let's break down that price action. Earlier this year, shares hit a 52-week high of nearly $192. Following the earnings release, the stock aggressively repriced into the $152 to $157 range, bouncing right off the 20-day simple moving average.
The trading volume during that drop was the real story, though.
Absolutely. We saw 14.1 million shares traded post-earnings. A lot of retail commentary called it a washout of weak hands, but that ignores the institutional mechanics at play.
Exactly. When a company is in a high capex cycle and posts consecutive quarters of margin compression, institutional risk models automatically trigger sell orders. It's not emotion, it's algorithmic.
But that algorithmic selling clears the deck, right? The momentum indicators reset, allowing the stock to consolidate. The underlying technical structure actually remains intact, suggesting the market is just pausing to wait for fundamental execution. Let's break that down even further into what you need to watch over the next few months.
There are a few clear triggers to monitor. First is the Q2 2026 earnings report in early August. The market consensus expects roughly $196.7 million in revenue. Given the aggressive volume ramp, the market will scrutinize that top-line number heavily.
But the pivotal operational milestone arrives in Q3. That is when they are slated to open a new 210,000 square foot facility in Texas, completely dedicated to manufacturing 800G and 1.6T transceivers.
We cannot overstate the complexity of that expansion. Expanding a facility for optical manufacturing isn't just about leasing warehouse space. You need expansive Class 100 clean rooms, industrial HVAC systems for absolute sterility, and specialized hazardous material handling.
Doing that domestically in Texas is a monumental capital undertaking. Which brings us to the cash buffer. They are sitting on $449.4 million in cash, which actually more than doubled from the previous quarter.
That is a massive war chest. When you attempt a six-fold production ramp-up, you burn cash rapidly. They spent almost $69 million in capital expenditures in Q1 alone.
But that cash reserve is the ultimate safety net, isn't it?
It really is. It allows them to self-fund this aggressive expansion without having to access the debt markets at unfavorable interest rates or dilute shareholders with secondary offerings. It provides the financial runway required to survive the margin compression.
That runway explains why institutional ownership remains robust at nearly 62%. Smart money is looking past the near-term crunch. The analyst community is massively raising price targets, too. We've seen models updated to $80 and one highly optimistic case up to $220.
Yeah, those models are factoring in the expected margin inflection. But there's also speculative upside that isn't fully priced in, like potential tariff refunds of over $5.7 million. Additionally, there are persistent rumors of further upsized hyperscaler orders.
Wait, really? Upsized orders?
Yeah, we saw a precedent for this earlier in the year where a hyperscaler essentially doubled an 800G order almost overnight just to secure supply.
Oh, wow. I get the fundamental bull case, the cash buffer, the domestic expansion, but I have to raise a macro point here. With the broader market currently rotating out of the AI connectivity trade, does it even matter how flawlessly applied optoelectronics executes if the macro tide is going out?
Well, it's a crucial distinction between short-term macro sentiment and long-term enterprise value. In the immediate term, macro rotations absolutely dictate price action. If the sector faces broad sell-offs, gravity will pull everything down.
Right, they just get dragged down with the broader indices.
Exactly. However, data center buildouts are not governed by quarter-to-quarter stock market sentiment. They're governed by 5-year and 10-year capital expenditure roadmaps from the world's largest tech conglomerates.
They are in an existential race for AI compute power.
Precisely. A hyperscaler cannot pause a $3 billion data center project simply because mutual funds are rotating into defensive consumer staples. The physical demand for those 800G transceivers remains absolute.
So here's the final lowdown. Applied Optoelectronics is navigating a massive transformation from a legacy optics supplier into a premier, vertically integrated, US-based AI transceiver manufacturer. The pullback offers a fascinating reset for those willing to stomach the execution risks of a multi-year networking upgrade cycle.
It really is an engineering high-wire act. But as AI infrastructure scales to unimaginable heights over the next decade, you have to wonder, will the physical limitations of optical networking become the ultimate bottleneck for human progress?
That is a heavy thought.
And if so, are we vastly underestimating the geopolitical power of having domestic manufacturing for these microscopic indium phosphide components? If you control the infrastructure that creates the light, you effectively control the future constraints of global computing.
That is a profound thought to leave on. You've been listening to the Easy Money Show. Keep questioning the market's primary narrative, stay sharp on the fundamentals, and we'll catch you on the next one.